Welcome back, everyone, to a irregular episode of Galactic Reviews. We are not doing a specific movie this time that anyone shows, but all of us, hopefully Zach will be able to join us later. But for now, all three of us have watched the new Amazon Prime series remake rendition of Batman: The Caped Crusader. What was it? The same showrunners or the same creators as the Batman the animated series?
I think Bruce Timm is the executive producer, and he's the same guy who did the animated series. I think J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves was also
Mhm.
executive producers in this as well.
Yeah, so Batman the Animated Series, what was it? 8 episodes? 10 episodes? I think it was 10.
10, I think
10
10.
episodes, 20 minutes long. For anyone that has already seen it or seen trailers of it, the style is very reminiscent of Batman the Animated Series. The music is very reminiscent of Batman the Animated Series. Just the overall creation of it makes people, gives people who loved Batman the Animated Series a nostalgic feeling. Um, remembering what it was like watching that original show. Overall, I have mixed feelings about it. There were some good, great things. There were some things that I didn't care a lot about. Some things that I thought I didn't understand why, which I'm sure we'll get into. But overall, I would say more leaning towards good than bad. I guess I would say this is what Batman would be made in the social political climate of the 2020s. Um,
Mm,
so it was all right. If you're just watching it to rekindle the magic of Batman the animated series, you might be getting hit and a miss. Um, but if you're watching it for more Batman content, you might just you could be okay with it. Overall, it was all right. It was very episodic. Every episode really was its own individual story. They were really going in on niche villains, which is one way to do it. I feel like they should have capitalized on bigger villains to get people more interested in it, and then pull in the niche villains in like a second season. But I would say you should start off with a bang
yeah.
if you're hoping to get greenlit. Either way, it was all right. Out of 10, like a weak 6.5.
I don't like this series. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
The way they handled Batman, Bruce Wayne, like I guess from a character standpoint, I thought he was fine, but how he interacts with characters like Alfred and that whole dynamic between them, I thought was badly done. With him and Jim, there wasn't too much of a problem. I just think a lot of the characters were not the same character that has been kind of represented in pop culture for a lot of them, especially more recently. Yeah, the character designs are off. The certain backgrounds for the characters were done poorly. Yeah, no, it was not a good. It just wasn't that good. If you're a Batman fan and you watch the series, you'll probably be disappointed. If you're just a casual person trying to go watch something about Batman, you probably won't think twice about it. I wouldn't think.
Can I clarify what you just said?
Yeah, sure.
I'm assuming you meant Batman fan of the comics.
I mean, if you're like a diehard fan of the animated TV show and
Yep.
you never got into the comics, you'd probably still be somewhat disappointed. I would say you'd probably still like the animation style as it's very reminiscent of the animated series in the, or at least the more recent animated series. It's very reminiscent of it. But there's a lot of things that aren't very well done when it comes to characters and character story and character arcs and character design. I don't think I don't mind the new actor for Batman and Bruce Wayne. I thought he sounded all right. I think he was not really given the best material that the character could have utilized, but he was still all right considering that Kevin Conroy just recently passed away, or I think passed away a couple of years ago, or a year ago, or something like that. Yeah, no, I did not like this show. It ended up being more about other characters besides Batman, which more so being about Barbara Gordon in a couple very distinct episodes, which is fine if it's like a 20 episode season, but we're only getting like 10 episodes of Batman. I would like to get a lot more of Batman and then save the stuff for character development of side characters for later down the line. Yeah, a lot of like I said before, a lot of these villain characters, their motives are twisted into such a way. I think besides Catwoman, I think Catwoman was ironically the one that was somewhat held up to kept within like certain origins, with her being rich and then just stealing just for the pleasure of it. I don't think that's exactly accurate, but it is more accurate than what most of these other ones were, with Harvey Dent being crooked as heck instead of being in a kind of sort of agreement to help try to make the city better. He's just going along with everything else. And then for some random reason has a change of heart in the middle of at the end of the season when he becomes, that leads him to become Two-Face. You have characters that have are bigger characters outside of this show, like Eel O'Brien, Patrick Eel O'Brien, better known as Plastic Man. He is, instead of him being a thief that ends up turning a new leaf, and in some cases in some different story aspects of the character, because of the Batman in places like the Brave and the Bold TV show, he is nothing more than a Jimmy Olsen stand-in for characters like Jim Corrigan. He is a detective that ends up being just another crooked cop, when in reality he's a detective that is the host of the Spectre, who is a spirit of vengeance. Well, for some of this stuff, if you watch some TV shows like The Brave and the Bold, especially, you will know these two characters. But if you haven't, you probably won't care that much about them. And they were, for Corrigan, it was for shock factor. I don't think that was handled really well. But I'll let Zach go because I realize I'm kind of ranting a little bit. I'm just going off on tangents. But in short, I did not like this series, and it can be epitomized to when Batman picks up a gun and shoots somebody. Yeah, that's kind of where I draw the line, because that's essentially something Batman would never do.
He didn't.
Yeah, he did. He pointed a gun and shot at somebody. It didn't. He missed him deliberately. But when he shot at Detective Flass in episode 10, do you remember that?
No, I do. I was thinking you were saying he shot someone.
Oh, no, he shot at someone. He didn't kill anybody, but he shot at someone and missed. And regardless, Batman would never. I don't think Batman wouldn't do that.
Yeah, he has no problems, stabbing people with boomerangs instead.
He just doesn't like to use guns. That's his
But
phobia.
his kryptonite.
Yeah. I don't think it was that good. It had potential, yes, but I think it was implemented horribly. I'll give it a 2.5 out of 10.
All right. And am I the last one, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
You missed mine.
Yeah. I kind of wish I didn't. I'm not a big Batman fan. Never have been. All right. So to me, Batman and its TV shows, I just put on the background and listen to them. Don't really watch them. It's just who I am. Don't take it against me. I'm not a big Batman fan in general. Um, so I will say the first thing that caught me off guard was I think it was episode 1 with the Penguin.
Yeah, him
Um,
now being a woman.
it was one of those things like it doesn't bother me. It just I wasn't expecting it. Like you see the
Yeah.
silhouette, you see everything, and then it comes out a woman on stage singing, and I'm like, Penguin
Yeah.
doesn't sing, but
Well, they
that's fine. I
deliberately
don't
did
care.
that they deliberately hid that in the trailer. I think in the trailer that we watched, we only saw the silhouette.
Hmm.
So they deliberately hid that in the trailer.
Like
So
I still think she was a good penguin. Um,
I think she was a good villain, not a good penguin.
I mean, yeah, yeah, she was
Like
a good villain. I'll give her that.
I could see her being a good mob boss. I don't see her being a
Yeah,
good penguin. Penguin is a mob boss that is, well, ugly to say the least, fat and ugly and little guy, and hence why he waddles like a penguin. And he ends up becoming a good sort of crime boss, but that takes time with him. And you see him kind of grow from being like a little guy in the kind of just trying to make a name for himself with the trick umbrellas and stuff into him becoming like an owner of the Iceberg Lounge.
hmm
And kind of like creating like a mob hub or whatever, sort of taken up with like the Falcones and other like Rupert Thorns and other mob characters. I'm sorry, go back to your review.
Honestly, I didn't particularly have a problem with this. Like I said, Batman to me is just something I do in the background. I think the last Batman I paid attention to 100% was probably Batman Beyond. Um, I'm just a big fan of Batman Beyond. So I enjoyed it for the most part. There were parts in episodes that I didn't care for, like Harley Quinn's um episode. It
Yeah,
just didn't feel like a Harley Quinn to me.
she acts a lot more like a character known as Hugo Strange, which was more of a psychiatrist that kind of messed with people's brains.
Yeah,
And she acted more like him instead of what her main character is, which is someone who Joker ends up messing up psychologically into being essentially lackey henchman and
exactly.
right hand person.
When they introduced Harley Quinn, I was excited because I thought we would see Joker like an episode later.
You said it in the
Or
trailer review.
I probably did. That one disappointed me. I understand it's his biggest villain, but at the same time, you introduce Harley Quinn, who's the sidekick pretty much to the Joker and is attached to him 95% of the time. Where's the Joker? I'm trying to think. It's been a few weeks since I've seen this, so I'm
You
just
want me to
trying to remember.
you want me to go through the villains? Is that what you're going through?
No, not specifically the villains, just
Mm.
like different parts that I didn't really care for, but I think those are the two that stuck out with me the most.
There was the Penguin episode, the Clay, no, yeah, the
And there
Clayface
wasn't,
episode. Then there was the what was the third episode?
wasn't that the introduction to Catwoman, the third episode?
I thought Catwoman was the fourth episode.
She might have been. I don't. Oh, was it Firefly?
Uh, Firebug.
Eh, close enough. I stick with my standing on the cops on this one.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, a cooler name would be Firefly, not Firebug. I understand that
No, no,
their
you're right.
actual name is Firebug.
Third episode is Catwoman.
Okay.
Yeah, Firebug's the fourth episode.
I thought that one was a
Harley Quinn is the fifth
pretty good
episode.
episode, but I did not like the ending of that character. He
I,
always gets the short end of the stick.
dude, I don't like how they portrayed Harvey Bullock in this episode. Supposed to be a good cop. You're not supposed to like him a lot of the time because he is essentially just a get out of my way, I do what I want type. But he will
Yeah,
listen to Jim Gordon. I don't like the fact that they made him
a
essentially,
crooked cop.
yeah. And then Detective Flash, I don't. Uh, he was crooked in Batman Year One, um, so I get that, but why is he wearing a turquoise suit?
Because it's cool, man. They look, if I could show you, I don't have any at the moment. If I could show you pictures of like my grandparents and their my great grandparents wore for suits,
Mhm.
it was bright colors. Bright colors, a lot of plaid. So it makes sense for that time era.
Yeah.
Bright colored suits.
Okay. I just didn't know anything about that because like he's
Yeah,
the only one wearing a bright suit.
it was a cultural thing.
Oh. Yeah, let's see. Fifth episode was Harley Quinn. Sixth episode was Gentleman Ghost. Seventh episode was Onomatopoeia. Eighth episode was that Nocturna girl that made,
Nocturna.
yeah, lady that was like essentially like a soul vampire, stole your essence of life or
Oh
whatever.
yes, 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 yes.
Um,
I know which one it
and
is.
killed her brother. Had no
Yeah.
remorse early on when she hurt him, and then all of a sudden felt bad when she found out she killed him.
Hey, look, I do the same thing.
The thing is, I understand to a certain degree. I just think it could have like I understand to a certain degree how like those things could correlate. I just think it was poorly portrayed. Like if she
Um,
had just shoved her brother and then left, not realizing that hey, she had just like
well, that's
done a
pretty much
horrible
what she.
damage.
That's pretty much what she did
I'm
in
pretty
her
sure she
eyes.
didn't she just stand over her brother and he said, "I'm hurt really bad. You need to go get help." And she's like, "No, you don't need any help. You are gonna be right there. You're gonna be fine." And then left. Like after
I've
she just
look,
like
I've done the same thing. I've dislocated Kira's elbow, and he's like, "Hey, look, it's dislocated." I'm like, "Ah, you'll be fine." And he wasn't fine.
how do you dislocate an elbow?
A trampoline.
It's a joint.
No, like what do you mean? Like just the arms disconnected from here?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
pops out.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I'm thinking like the elbow, like the bone part of the
No,
elbow.
no,
And I'm
no, no,
like, you
no, no,
can't
no.
dislocate that. My brother tried.
I'm also kind of up there with not really much Batman knowledge other than the generals stuff. So I didn't notice it when smaller characters were not done right. But I did notice it when the bigger characters were not done right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the dynamic between Alfred and Batman is he's literally a second father.
Yeah.
That was not so much the case here. Um,
I mean, you don't really feel that until he was fighting
the
the
Ghost Daddy,
ghost.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Harley Quinn, you can't have Harley Quinn without the Joker. Like that's the whole point.
Hmm.
Um, the Two-Face, yeah, he's a white knight until he's corrupted.
And he
Other
does
than
have
that,
problems. I will give you that. Like Two
Well,
Face
the
does
only
have
other, yeah,
problems,
the
but like Harvey
the
Dent, he does have problems, but they never go into like he's made to be crooked the whole time. Like he's
the only other thing I disliked was that Harley Quinn found out the identity of Batman really quickly and easily. I get she's a psychiatrist, but it still shouldn't be that easy.
yeah. Other than like the lore things, these are the cancelable things that I'll say. Which I don't even think that are that cancelable because they're pretty reasonable disagreements.
you know,
Um, I do not care about race changing or gender changing as long as it is
Okay.
not a pivotal um part of their character. Snow White, the whole thing is that her skin is like porcelain. You can't change that and then
Yeah,
it's
you
still
can't
Snow
change
White.
that. Yeah.
Um, those kind of things. So the fact that we had like different races, various skin colors in the show did not bother me. But when the fact that it's almost exclusively like just Batman and Alfred, and the occasional character, villain, those are the only people that you're keeping white, that seems targeted. That seems very in your face, and that other than Batman, which we can't change,
yeah, because he's
every
a
other white person
rich
is going to be
guy.
a villain.
Well,
If
yeah, they
look,
Um,
can't change.
if we change Batman, no one will ever see him coming.
exactly. Um, that and how they handled Harley Quinn. Um, again, sexuality representation, that's fine.
Yeah,
But that relationship that she had in the show, I would argue, had zero impact on the plot.
Hmm.
There was no reason for that to be there other than just oh, Batman's in my house now. I gotta go. If Harley Quinn was a strictly straight character, I doubt they would have done that exact same plot.
Like the only
yeah,
person I would see Harley Quinn even thinking of doing anything like that with would be Poison Ivy.
Well, I mean, it's
And
it's established that she's like bisexual,
yeah,
or whatever.
Well, yes, I get that, but it's one of those things of it's just difficult to think of Harley Quinn just without the Joker around
Yes,
or
exactly.
without
So the
Poison Ivy.
decisions that they made to be more inclusive crossed the line of being inclusive and made it more in your face.
Yeah. I'm
And
reading a
that was the part
story.
as a viewer that took me out.
Yeah. I'm reading
I
a
was like,
Batman
what is
story.
this? This is not impacting the plot. With
Yeah.
20-minute episodes, you're not even building the character. You're just showing us, look, we're inclusive.
Like if she wasn't Harley Quinn and she continued to progress as a character throughout the season, I
Mhm.
would be like, okay, maybe that would have some
And then, yeah,
purpose.
like side
Yeah.
Yes,
plots to build
but
character
the thing is,
development, that's fine. But in a
it was
one twenty
just
minute episode, what are you doing?
Yeah.
yeah, it was just introduced, and then immediately she's revealed to be a villain, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that just means she's going to disappear in an episode.
She's been by for a while.
It was
She's,
it was
I mean, I think she's been by since, well,
93.
I don't think she was by in 93.
I literally just Googled it.
Well, that's what they say, but I don't think she's actually gone out with with
I didn't realize she
Ivy.
was bilingual.
Um,
92.
for Harley Quinn, I doubt that's the case because when
I
did
was
the
just saying it
animated?
was just unnecessary for this for how short her character was in here for.
I don't think that's accurate because when did the show, the Batman the Animated Series, start up? Because that's when she debuted.
Really?
Yeah, she debuted in the animated series. Harley Quinn.
Oh my goodness, you're right.
So
Okay,
I
so
don't.
Google took my question incorrectly.
Yeah. No, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think that happened
I
until
said, when
later
did
on.
Harley Quinn come out? And they gave me the answer of when she came out as a creation.
As a
Yeah. I think when I would think in the more recent 2010 probably would be somewhere around the ballpark, somewhere in the 2010s.
I was gonna say after Suicide Squad.
I guess I thought she was around a lot longer than she was. I didn't know she was original for the show.
Yeah, no, she was originally created in the animated TV show. And then people liked her so they liked her so much, or it had so much publicity that they decided, let's go ahead and throw her in the comic books as well, in order to kind of help with the numbers, I guess. That way people could look at the show and then see them in the comic books as well, would be my guess.
Yeah.
2020. It was confirmed 2020.
Oh, okay. So really recent. I thought it was a lot less recent. Okay.
2019, 2020. It was
All right.
confirmed in the DC film Birds of Prey.
Yeah, I was kind of right. I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Um, but
I
I'm just
just
trying to remember. I
I guess
didn't.
people have thought she always was because that's how she was like
I mean, that's just how she
semi
acts.
portrayed in the original series,
well, she
Yeah.
also well,
but it wasn't like confirmed, like attached to her character, I guess,
Oof.
officially until 2020, which is
well,
kind of insane that they took that long.
well, she also just always had that same bubbly personality. So it
Yes.
would
That's
she
true.
and she talked that way with everybody. So I except ironically with the creeper.
Anyways, that's the main problems I had. The lore problems were minor compared to the just how much they tried to make it inclusive to the point
Yeah.
where the inclusivity secluded the other group of people.
Yeah. Well, because
Yeah.
let's see, what did they I'm trying to go through everything they did. So like
Other
the
than
tech
that, I was just like, eh, it was normal Batman stories, nowhere near the weight or enjoyment of the original animated.
yeah. The origins were not as good. Especially like let's see. Clayface went from being an actor who had lost everything, get everything he had, like his face back from when he lost it in a car crash and got scarred up to heck. trying these experiment stuff and end up getting this superpower of essentially being able to morph into things
Power.
to sort of detriment as well from a freak lab accident with the chemical makeup stuff to now being this guy who is doing this all to impress some girl. And then you have, what's his face?
Yeah, they really just like watered down the villains.
Yeah, they really did. Like they didn't want to go too hard with him.
Yeah, instead of giving villains that they like could have kept and like just given us an introduction to,
Yeah.
like every villain was like a one-off. They were like one and done. So we're gonna
Yeah.
kill as much as we
Yeah.
can for their character in the episode. Very little of Batman until he knocks him out at the end.
I know they did with Gentleman Ghost. He could have been an interesting annoyance from time to time. Him having to go to mystic stuff or whatever.
hmm
But they made him a guy that would only rob from the poor to send a message, I would assume. That's the only way I can look at it because there's no other reason for him to go rob the poor because they got no money.
I still think that's the greatest thing. He goes, Harvey Dent's like, here, take my wallet. He's like, I don't want that chump change. Turns to the guy in the corner, give me all your money.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I
Like
was
they
like,
tried to,
okay, I mean, I understand what they were like, why,
like they
but at the
tried to,
same time, it doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't. That one's the one where I think they were trying to make a political statement and they tried to shoehorn it into this guy's origin and it just did not work out in any sense of the way that they handled it.
I don't know.
There's a lot wrong with this. Oh, did you guys like the so like let's see here. Dick Grayson made a cameo. Jason Todd made a cameo.
They did?
Um yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean,
They were the two they
I was about
were
to say
the
they were the
orphans.
orphans.
Oh,
Stephanie
I didn't know.
Brown made a cameo and Carrie, I forget her last name, the girl that's Robin in the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns run. She makes a cameo. At that point,
Look,
why include
I
him
don't
at
know.
all? Barbara Gordon is aged up so that way she can date Bruce Wayne and it not look weird. That's the whole reason. And Bruce
I
Tim,
was about to say, I thought she was the same age as
no, she's the same age. She
Dick.
should be the same age as Dick Grayson, but Dick Grayson is a kid in the orphanage.
Yeah, because when they introduced Dick, I was like, oh, cool. They're gonna have a some sort of like Robin or something like that. He's gonna,
Yeah,
and then they introduced everyone else. And I'm like, oh wait,
yeah,
there's too much all at once. I don't know. I feel like they try to do too much in just 10 episodes, 20 minutes each, where like it still had somewhat of a cohesive plot, and at the same time, it was still too much information at one time. Because the whole plot was the police trying to capture the Batman. That was the whole plot of it, pretty
yeah.
much.
Well, I mean,
Um,
yeah,
but even then, it's like you're adding way too much information between each villain every episode that it's just taking away from character growth from Batman and everyone else. The only time they had character growth was in the graveyard.
what they could have done was they could have started off with like it being Batman's like year one, him taking out the mob, and then people like Penguin rising up into power, like kind of taking over the mob, trying to fill in the shoes for that. Then you also see like freaks like or what they call freaks, super villains that are rising up into like certain places like Clayface, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, certain characters like that would be.
Yeah, I also wasn't a fan of like the villains they chose. They chose really out of pocket villains and then just discarded them so quickly.
They rushed it and they rushed it and they there's no other way to say this. They rushed it and half-assed it. That's really what they did.
I mean,
Like they didn't
even
care. They
even
just wanted to
yeah,
get something
well
out.
the
It
thing
felt
was
like.
even with Two-Face, they killed off him, and he's a pretty big villain.
Yeah, and he's a good villain.
And I'm
He's a
like,
very good
okay.
villain.
I
I'm
mean,
gonna
they
have
killed
to
off.
drop my rating. The more I'm remembering about the things that I disliked overall about the show, the more I'm like, yeah, 6.5 is a lot weaker than I initially remembered.
Also, I don't know why Barbara Gordon's a lawyer, other than to just sort of have that conflict with Harvey Dent all the time,
Well,
which I don't
conflict with
think.
Harvey Dent, and then conflict with her own father, and then they put out a hit on her instead of her father, which I still don't understand.
Because it's all about her for some reason. This whole show feels like it's all about her for some reason or another.
Like her father's the commissioner, and I feel like he has like zero authority.
Yeah,
Which I understand the whole thing with like the mayor and him. Like that I understand that's
yeah,
common political stuff.
yeah,
But then with everything else, I'm like it just makes him look like a pushover. And I'm like, I know he's not a pushover.
yeah. And then the way they handled some like just side characters that like if you know comic book lore, you're like, oh, that's Eel O'Brien, that's Plastic Man, that's the guy that should be Plastic Man, and he's just Jimmy Olsen. And then you have Jim Corrigan, who's the Spectre, who is just another crooked cop.
Yeah, it was they tried to add too many names to a TV show at one time that it didn't
Yeah.
give credit to any of these characters. They just get pulled names and put them in a TV show.
Well, I think what they did was they tried to do that. They tried to put as much cameo stuff and as much stuff in it as possible, but didn't do any of the work to try to make it good. That's what it
Yeah,
felt like.
like the atmosphere of the show, the soundtrack and everything, I enjoyed,
Yeah.
but the writing was just all over the place.
Yeah. And that's a big portion of it. The
Yeah,
characters, the development of of the characters, the writing of the characters, the way the characters look and are acting and are portrayed, all that stuff is a big part of it. And they dropped the ball hard on this one,
yeah.
which is very
Yep.
disappointing because it's Batman. It's an easy layup. He's got so much source material. It's crazy.
I mean, it's not even the source material. I'm like, he's got
And he's so popular in pop culture that it should
his
be an easy
plot.
layup.
Well, it's not his plot is so simple.
Yeah.
He's a detective. Like what how do you mess up the fact he's a detective that fights crime with like just as a ninja? He's just a ninja detective. How do you mess that up?
Well, we watched the show, so we kind of know how they messed it up.
I mean, I understand how, but I'm trying to figure out like who greenlit this.
Well, I don't know, but it's weird that it's a Warner Brothers thing and it's not on Max. It was on Amazon Prime.
Oh, that's true. I didn't pay attention to that.
And I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
have
the
to cut it
reason
here
for
for
that.
me. I've got other people waiting on me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no problem, no problem.
No
Talk to you
problem.
later, Andrew.
See
Talk
y'all.
to you later, Andrew. Thank God he's gone. No, and Andrew brought up a good point. And I was tempted to bring it up, but I know he mentioned it a little bit before.
Oh, before I
Yeah,
showed up
about
back
like
up.
all the race changes and stuff. Like
Yeah. Like
Flash is
I don't have a problem with the race changes, but at the same time,
I kind of do, because to me that's
I was
kind
gonna
of
say
like
at the
taken
same
away.
time, well, at the same time, you're going for 1920s. None of them, it was a very different time period.
Yeah, and
You can change it.
you can have
You
one
can,
that's
ch
in there that earned the respect of them by doing some really
well, yeah, like the
mon.
female cop, like, sure, that makes sense. But just about everything else, I'm like, it doesn't, you can't change the past history. If you wanted to do Batman, make it modern and then do all the race changes then,
Yeah,
not do it to a 1920s where none of that would have happened or especially with the Harley Quinn and the female cop. You would have not done that in public. You would have been ostracized.
Yeah.
Like it, that's what I dislike. I don't mind the fact that they do it, unless they do it terribly, which they did quite a few times in this. It's the fact of you can't change history to fit your dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I'm on kind of on the opposite end of that. I dislike it entirely
Well, okay, yes.
because I
Like
see this as it's
I didn't like for the new Batman movie with whatever his name
Robert
is,
Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
I thought the race change for Jim Gordon, I think that was okay because it still felt like Jim Gordon.
Yeah, the actor did a good job, and that's the one thing where I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But and they did that worked out well. I just
Like
think,
as long as you keep the character's core the same,
yeah,
I think I don't really have a problem with it.
my problem is he acted like Jim Gordon. He didn't look like Jim Gordon, and that's also another part of the comic book aspect. Like you can write the character, you can have the character do the same kind of writing, but it's also a visual medium as well, and that's where I
I
have a
do
problem with
understand.
that.
I
But
do understand that. But it's also the same of like I understand you want to include more. That's fine. As
yeah,
long as you keep the character's core values the same and you don't destroy them to make a completely new character with the same name,
yeah.
then I don't specifically have a problem with it.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem with like you said in Robert Pattinson's Batman. I didn't mind the Jim Gordon one's the one I really didn't mind. The Selena Kyle one, I was like, I don't care. Like I didn't think the actress was good. I didn't think the actress was bad. But the Jim Gordon one, I was like, okay, the actor was really good and he acted like Jim Gordon. The only thing is he didn't look like Jim Gordon. That's the one I could let slide.
Mhm.
But I'm also at the same point. I'm like, there's also a plethora of actors that probably could have done that role as well. So I just
Like I get it. Like if you want like and I've been saying this for a long time.
yeah,
If you want to have an easy job doing something with diversity, do something like Static Shock.
yeah,
It's simple, it's easy,
yeah,
it has a very diverse casting pool.
yeah. Try to make it less preachy than you did the animated show, but
I mean, yes, but at the same time, I mean that is kind of
yeah, I know Milestone Comics are going to be Milestone Comics. I get it, but
yeah.
and the character is
It's
still an
like
interesting character. I think just
he's a
write
very
it
fun,
better.
interesting character, yeah. And his villains are actually pretty
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
No, I watched the show. I know exactly what you're talking about. I
Exactly.
just think the writing could have been better for like dialogue on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was definitely an early 2000s animated superhero kids TV show.
Yeah, and that also then like said guns are bad and everything. I'm like, well, yes, but that's why you should know how to use them, not be afraid of them for your life.
That is true. That is true. It's all just a whole, I mean, they have such a large group of characters to choose from
Yeah,
that they can choose and have diversity, like the most recent Blue Beetle movie.
yeah,
Yes, it wasn't that great of a movie, but
yeah,
it is an example.
yeah. And I think, well, the problem is like when they do something, well, I think the reason for that Blue Beetle movie doing so poorly is that they didn't try to include anything doing with Ted Cord, who's more well known as Blue Beetle.
Who is
Didn't try
pretty
to
much
honor
the
the
yeah.
past at all. Just essentially said the new stuff that essentially just said new stuff is go, ignore the old stuff, kind of crap on
Yeah,
the old
and
stuff if you can.
let's be honest. People nowadays, our age and younger, yes, they still read comic books, but they read the old comic books, not the new stuff.
Yeah, because the new stuff is preachy. That's all it is. It's
They know
mostly
more
preaching.
about the older comic books than they know about the newer comic books.
Yeah, and that's not saying all new stuff is bad. Like I've
No,
got a few indie stuff that says otherwise. That's really good.
yes,
We've
but
read some indie stuff that's bad too, but it
no,
there's
it's
still
the
good comic
quality.
books out there. It's just the more mainstream stuff like DC and Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like for
Care
instance,
less.
another one that's not mainstream that's really good. Um, I don't know where my book is. Shoot. I just rewatched some of it with Garrett. Invincible.
Yeah, that one's really good. Well, I haven't read the book. I've watched the TV show. I got to get the book from Thomas. I haven't been able to read it because I've got like a plethora of books I need to also read. So I'm like, you keep it until.
I understand. I understand. But it's like we have things that are good that are coming out.
Yeah,
It's just a lot more difficult to find the
yeah.
gems nowadays than
Well,
it was
yeah,
back
because like
then.
the pile has gotten
Back
so
then,
much bigger,
yeah, well,
and
yeah,
that
true.
the
But back
and
then you could go to a comic book store or go pick up a comic book
yeah,
and 9 times out of 10, you'll enjoy it. It's a good read.
yeah.
But now it's like, it was okay.
Well, the standards have gotten so much lower, and the quality and the standards have
Mm-hmm.
gone so much down, and the plethora of comics has grown so much that you're gonna have to start through looking under over a topsoil of fecal matter of comics in order to find the better material that's hidden underneath.
Yeah, yeah. It's a mess. It's
Yeah.
disappointing, but it is what it is.
And DC knows that what good comic books are. They keep on printing these in
Reprinting
volumes.
them.
Yeah, they keep on
Mm-hmm.
reprinting. This one's the newest one of JSA for book 5, and they still got what, maybe like two more books they could do of JSA. This one came out in like 2023. That's cool, I
It's
guess.
like they know which
They
ones
know
are
what's
their
yeah,
stellars.
they know which ones are good. They refuse to try to make anything like that again.
I don't think it's well, I'm not
I
gonna
don't know
say
if
I
it's
don't think that's the
refused.
case.
I don't know if it's refused.
It's
They just aren't looking to try to.
it's either they're not looking or
They're not trying.
they
They're
feel
not
like if
trying.
they do something close to it, they'll say, "Oh, this is just a rip off of
Well,
this."
well, I mean, they did that
Which
with Rebirth. They started out really good
I mean,
with.
that's true.
I read a few stuff of Rebirth that kind of like got me right back into. That got me into reading DC a little bit more. When like they said we're gonna restart everything and bring back some of the good old stuff while still keeping some of the new stuff that worked. And yeah, like DC Rebirth was fine until like I think a couple years later when they started doing all kinds of they went back to the same old of we gotta have ideal
Hmm.
ideologies thrown in there. We gotta have politics thrown in there, and we gotta be preaching to the audience. And
Yeah.
it wasn't every book, but you saw it enough times where you're like, I'm not going to take a chance on this book. And, or like they turn you off to the book you're currently reading. And it's like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I
I'm not
know
gonna
it's not on
finish
every
this.
book. I know it's not on every book because if it was, you'd see it all the time. So
I mean, yeah,
you
sure.
would see it all the time. And like, what is this crap? Every single time they bring up like Alan Scott being gay, it's like, well, yeah, they did that. But what about the other 15 books that came out this week? It's all right.
Yeah, it's just all in all just a
Yeah.
mess of its own.
Yeah.
It's
Everything's
just
nothing's ever great anymore. It's all just mid, if anything, at best.
it was like I was talking with someone and we would talk about older movies. They're like, you know why the quality of older movies are so much better than newer movies? It's the
Because
pride, it's the
well, hey now.
better ideas, better scripts. They're not afraid to write a good script.
Yeah.
And the fact of they don't have CGI. If they wanted an explosion, they did an explosion.
Well, all on top of that, they got a whole bunch of restraints now by higher up execs that have
Yeah, I
kind of
know.
no idea what they're doing, but are
Yeah.
seeing overseeing. It's kind of like the government trying to tell you what to do.
I mean,
Um,
look,
in an area of expertise.
Hollywood's been its own government for years.
It's like an HR department telling like the
They're like
construction
Disney.
workers how to. It's like an
They're
HR
just like
department
Disney.
looking over the construction workers, telling them like what they can't say, what they can't do, and everything. And it
Yeah.
makes the work unbearable. They don't want to
You're
do it
supposed
anymore.
to put it in the yellow lines. That's not in the
Yeah.
yellow lines.
Yeah. And like there are certain rules that construction needs to undergo in order for it to be safe. That's understandable, but you can't go overboard. And that's what they've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
I know I'm basically
Oh,
preaching to the
but
choir, but I mean it. I mean it.
I mean it, damn it.
I read a bunch of this afternoon, and apparently in the middle of this, Renee Montoya is dating a guy, and the guy dies due to this Ebola virus that's essentially just like an
Sweet
apocalypse virus.
Ebola.
And yeah, no, it's crazy because now like Renee Montoya is gay, and like they keep on shouting her out as gay, but in like 1996 she wasn't that. So it's
Yeah.
just like a weird, like you look back at the old stuff and you compare it to the new stuff. And you're like, why was this so much better? Oh yeah, because they weren't trying to shoehorn this down my throat. And that's not to say they didn't have gay characters. In Death of Superman, one of the cops, the head cop, Maggie Sawyer, is lesbian. And it's only brought up once. Actually,
It's
maybe
not pivotal
twice.
to plot. That's the thing. It's not pivotal to plot. It doesn't matter.
And the one time she does bring it up is her saying, "Is it because of my sexual orientation?" And the guy's like, "No, why would you think that?"
Funny.
Yeah, it's ironic because no, it's ironic because that's something that would be used today. And then like there'd be a parade march she would have done afterwards, all kinds of stuff. But instead, it
Yeah.
was just like a passing by, and he was just like, "No," and essentially just slapped that idea down. Like, why is that even a thing?
Yeah. It's
And then like brought her in to promote her, and that's the first thing she thinks of. It's like, "Are you doing this to me because I'm a lesbian?" And I'm like, because she thought she was going to get demoted. And he's like, "No, I need somebody I can respect, which is why I'm promoting you."
do you not want the position? Because I
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
demote you again.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. Like you look at that, and like back in that day, it would have just been funny. Nowadays, it's like somebody's going to have an aneurysm because you wrote that in. Yeah, no, they got to stop. They got to go back to writing stories again and stop caring about what people are going to think.
Yeah, just write him to for
Like
just
if you write a
honestly
bad story, people are going to tell you it's a bad story. You'll be
just
able to
make
tell
a
by the
story. Yeah,
ratings
just
and
make a
by the money
story.
going in.
Look, just make a story that I'm trying to think how to put this, that you think would sell. Or no, that's not. I there's a saying and I can't think of what it is, but nowadays it's like someone says that and it just gets taken the wrong way of you're being derogatory or whatever.
Well, thank you guys for watching this episode of Galactic Reviews. We hope you well, not gonna say, we hope you enjoyed this review more than you did the show. So join us next
Nice one.
time on Galactic Reviews. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.